Welcome to Let's Stats with Dad and our special guest, MayDreaming.
Hello.
Gay- Gayest.
Guest. We are going to be talking about 1922 Murnau's Nosferatu, the original. Yeah, we'll just take it away now. So what'd you think of the movie, guys?
It was really good. I'm a fan.
I think I'd seen
Er,
it for the first time. Well, I'd seen it recently 2 years ago, so it's been a little bit since I've sat down and really paid attention to it.
Nice. Yeah, it was really compelling. I watched a bunch of silent era films back when I was in film studies, but I never watched that one, and I was really intrigued how well it kept up. Like it's not a modern movie, but it has a lot of the same pacing and sort of structure that you still find today.
It's really true. It really you can really see it as a blueprint for a lot of horror films that are coming out today. It did remind me a lot of The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is another silent film that I really love.
Mm-hmm. And it's also a German expressionist film, so it kind of tracks.
Mhm.
Also, the director of Caligari made one called Orlac's Hands, and I think I haven't
Really?
yeah, put much research into it, but it seems like it might be influenced by Nosferatu. It was
I'll have
really interesting how
to
they
put
did
that one
everything.
on the list.
Yeah, another one for the list of like almost 2 dozen vampire movies. We'll get to them eventually. But it was really interesting. Like even at the beginning, how they sort of set up the tone for the movie with I forget the exact line that Ellen has about the flowers that Thomas Hutter gives her, where she's like, "Why did you have to kill these beautiful flowers?" And I think that kind of sets the tone of what the movie's going to be like. I guess yeah,
Right, she's
also
upset about
shows
the
her,
like
yeah, like shows her character. Like when she reads the cheat sheet on how to deal with vampires and demons, she's like a pure soul or a pure heart. So
She's like, "That's me."
yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
that's very different from like the later versions of it. She's very, she's like the innocent.
hmm yeah. I think it was when Coppola made his. He was the one that kind of made this sort of like star-crossed lovers with Dracula and the main protagonist. Whereas I believe in the original, it was the original book. It was closer to this. It was more of
Right.
this sort of like possession.
The book was before the turn of the century, right?
Yeah,
It
I believe
was
it was 1898.
Dang, that's old.
Yeah, it's also really cool. So when he first gets the letter from Count Orlok, and it's all those like occult symbols that was actually made by the producer Alvin Grau, with all of his influences from his secret occult life in Germany. And he put a lot of other very subtle imagery, especially in Orlok's castle, of these uh, old occult symbols.
I remember that
Ooh.
that close up of Orlok's face when he's reading the paper and all the symbols on the back of it.
Right? Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, Max Schreck's acting, especially as Orlok, is really interesting. Like, actually feels very haunting to this day.
It did, especially towards the end.
Hmm Yeah, like especially during. I don't think the boat's called the Demeter in Nosferatu, but the stand-in for it was like really setting up this horrific sort of specter and becoming translucent on the coffin and disappearing when he's in the German city. He's looking through this like dilapidated window at Ellen. It's very ghoulish, ethereal feeling to
Yeah.
him.
I think my favorite was inarguably just all of the like. Is it? It's not stop motion, is it? The like way that they do the little zoomy scenes.
Yeah, that would just be fast forwarding, I believe, or like
Right.
Yeah.
physically speeding up the reel. But there was stop motion, like when Orlok would open up the ship door to come out, and the doors to his manor. Stop
Right. I think
motion.
there were several times where he opened the door and it was almost like this stop motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like very sort of like proto archaic version of it, but it very interesting to see how well they did with it. Because yeah, it was a very low budget movie made for this German audience, and that's also why what is now a trope, why Nosferatu dies to the sunlight. Because traditionally you had to chop the head off of the vampire and stab the heart with an iron stake, but they didn't have the budget, nor could they figure out how to do that back in 1922. So they just had him die to the sunlight, which now is canon.
Really?
Hmm.
So it started with Nosferatu was when vampires sort of were known to fear the sun.
Yeah, exactly. It was the
Wow.
first one
Oh,
to do that.
so I guess before that they could have theoretically been like creatures of the day as well.
Yeah. So they were actually just weakened by the sunlight before. That's like in Bram Stoker's, but yeah, weren't vanished or like in
So, like
more modern
on like
takes, burnt by
on
it.
like a Michael Jackson level of like they just need an umbrella and some
Yeah.
like gloves.
Yeah,
Some
exactly.
sunscreen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another cool thing about the movie too, is like originally and like how we watched it, it was tinted, so each scene you could tell what the sunlight was. And then I think there was a part when the coach driver, who seemingly looks like Orlok, is driving Thomas Hutter to the estate. He's like all covered up, and I would assume that is so that he doesn't have any contact with direct sunlight. And then you only see him again at nighttime in the blue.
That's true.
Yeah, the color tinting was actually kind of fun at certain points. Like towards the end there, I think there was like a scene with like a rooster crowing and
Yeah.
they like had like the red lighting and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, it was interesting they used that for
Yeah.
both dawn and dusk. I like that.
Like
It
big
added
rooster
to the
vibes.
drama.
Yeah. The cock crow, as they
What,
say.
what did you all think of the music?
Oh, the music was incredible.
Yeah, it was very bombastic. It like at parts,
It
you know,
was.
it seemed like it wasn't supposed to fit, but it definitely did. I was doing some research, and all but a few copies were lost during the loss of this lawsuit by Bram Stoker's widow for defamation. And yeah, a couple were kept in America because there was two different copyright laws at the time, and America just didn't really give a shit about European copyright laws. But unfortunately, none of the sheet music was kept. And so it's just interpretations and remembrances from people who saw the original in Europe.
Interesting. Because there were a lot of parts musically that like I had like felt like I recognized from like classic piano training.
Mm-hmm.
That I was like, oh yeah, like I know this one. but then it would like go off in a different direction and I was like, oh, it's more like a like decaf version of like this famous music piece that I'm aware of.
Wow,
It'd
so
probably
they
just be this
really
hodgepodge
kind of,
together.
yeah, they reconstructed it after losing it
Mm-hmm.
from
Yeah, I think
memory.
it was recreated, I think, in the 30s. I read. So like 15 years later is when they were able to rebroadcast the movie or redistribute it rather, and then make the music again.
Because I'd heard, I knew that this was a movie that was basically just doing Dracula. They decided to make a Dracula movie, but call it something else and change the names. And
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So they didn't actually have the rights to Dracula. They asked Bram Stoker's estate, but they were denied. And in not the version we watched, it was originally when I tried to watch back in the day. There's a description at the very beginning how they took influence from Dracula, and yeah, it's changed all the names because they didn't get the rights, and that's what led to kind of this almost lost media of one of our very first vampire movies, because Bram Stoker's widow just did not like the movie. She didn't give the rights to this small German production company that was started and owned by a German occultist. It was actually the master of the chair of the Pan Sophia Lodge, it's called, who were the German Freemasons. And then he went on later
wow.
to found the German occultist order, the Fraternis Saturni, which was the cult of Saturn.
Oh,
And this was their only movie.
Their only movie. It bankrupted the production company after this.
Wow. And then it went on to become so famous and influential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you can see, it wasn't the first horror movie, but a lot of tropes and a lot of influence from this movie came.
I'll bet you there are some like crazy QAnon type people who think that it's like an actual expose on what the elites were doing since it was made by Freemason.
Yeah, you could probably find some wild conspiracies online.
Like the Illuminati is actually Nosferatus.
Yeah, it's kind of cool too. So the production company is called Prana Film, and prana is actually the Sanskrit word
it should be like
life
energy
giving.
or
Yeah, for life or energy. So yeah, that was kind of this overt cultic influence, and funnily enough, a lot of the occult manuscripts at the time were produced by a book-selling company called Prana.
Wow.
that's wild because like yeah, I would like if someone were like, oh, this book publisher Prana, I'd be like, oh, like that must be a modern new age like
Yeah.
yoga company.
It really sounds like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that like the time of enlightenment, especially in Europe, and sort of this kind of what we see now as like the new age from Aquarius during the 70s, they have a lot in common. But back then it wasn't seen as like this dark thing. It was, very mysterious and, kept under wraps because it was heretical, but it was kind of an open secret. Whereas now it's not an open secret, but it's seen more as like this spirituality movement, which New Ageism actually is a part technically of Christianity. So it's interesting how it kind of adopted this occult influence into itself.
Yeah, and spiritualism really like went hard in the kind of Victorian and like after that, but definitely in the Victorian era it sort of started to kick off, I think.
Mm-hmm.
With like the little like spooky like parlor games that they'd play with like, I don't know, weird tables and things like that.
And just with photography, the presence of like spirit photography.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, the unphotographable. And you can kind of see them doing a little bit of that in this movie with the way that they portrayed Nosferatu as this supernatural being. I
Yeah,
feel like in the first part of the movie he wasn't so much supernatural, but then they started really playing with like overlaying his image across the coffin or playing with the shadows.
Yeah, exactly. Like he becomes a specter, and they kind of allude to that with the scene with the students and looking at these parasites, and he actually calls it like this, specter. And I was like, oh, it's interesting how they're doing this sort of overt subtext towards it. And nowadays you'd see it'd be a little more subtle, but it's kind of nice to have that, like, this is what he is. He's not really a creature of this earth. Yeah, and unlike in the book, he is a boyar, which is like one of the old royalty from Transylvania. He's actually made by Belial, who is believed the Prince of Hell is his official title. So he's essentially like this created demon that's been on Earth for who knows how long, at least centuries, by himself in this castle in Transylvania. Unlike the original Dracula, who had his servants and his harem, Orlok is completely alone and isolated.
Right. Very haunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super interesting. I would, and so like they didn't have the rights to Dracula, so it's kind of an adaptation of Dracula in a sense. Like they're it's not like it's from different source material.
No, yeah. So it's like pretty much directly all from Dracula, but then Alban Grau, the producer, added a lot of his own influence from his occult teachings, and that's why things like Belial are there, and most of the original stuff is pretty true to the book. But yeah, then it does kind of disclude some characters like Van Helsing and the first lady that becomes one of Dracula's brides, and the cowboy, unfortunately. But
yeah, Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy. Yes, it was.
I did very much in this version and in the Eggers version thoroughly enjoy the like crazed like balding dude who's just trying to make some money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the owner of the real estate firm that Thomas works for. I think his name was Knock. And yeah, it's cool because in the other ones, like Renfield is the sort of Igor character where he's living with Dracula and not just sort of like tangentially working with this spirit creature, because that's how I interpreted it, was that like Knock already knew what was happening. Like he kind of had some underpinnings of this sort of occult behavior, or maybe even direct ties to Belial, and then was setting up
some freaky shit.
Yeah, and then setting up Thomas, because he's just like, yeah, you should set him up in this like dilapidated house like right across from yours. Perfect.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. I also really liked the acting. It was like really, really theatrical. Like some of it was like, pretty hammy, especially the the actor that played Thomas, but I really liked it. It had some genuine charm that like is kind of lost today, where it's like a little more played seriously, but in the movie it has this sort of almost campy feeling, especially when they're chasing Knock all through the town and the countryside.
Yeah, it's something I was thinking about recently was how acting style really just leans towards realism now.
Hmm.
When before it was so expressionistic,
Yeah,
it
that's
was
a great way of putting it.
theatrical.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, because like silent films were like the natural evolution of like what came after stage acting, and stage acting was like all about exaggerated motion and like being able to project your voice so that like everyone could understand what was happening.
Yeah, and these sort of
Right, even if you were
caricatures,
seated
right?
far away.
Mm-hmm. That's also the really cool thing about the sort of birth of film. Like I believe the first film came out in 1888, so it's about 40-ish years, not even before or after the first film. And there's lots of very interesting like art direction in the movie. They're really experimenting with what they could get away with in film, and especially with like the shadows and yeah these translucent effects and how Ellen was set up on the beach. Just everything. It was really really well done.
Yeah, some of the shots were just so impressive and feel almost really modern.
Yeah, it's interesting that we haven't lost that part of film. Like there's those sort of mainstays, especially about cinematography, that will always kind of stick around.
Yeah, I'm thinking of when they were Knock is the character's name, right? Knock, when they're
Yep.
chasing him, the crowd is chasing him through the field. It was kind of an incredible sequence with the music. The music was really intense, but it was also very comical at the same time.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Like like modernly or in modernity, if you saw the scene, especially with Orlok and his castle, be like very eerie, but it's like very bombastic, and he's this funny little character when his cute little outfit.
His cute little outfit.
Oh, his little hat. His
Yeah,
little hat was
I love this
truly
hat.
I loved
incredible.
the hat. The hat with the feather was great.
It was iconic.
Yeah.
I wrote down a couple of my favorite scenes, and that was one of the first ones. His little cap. Yeah, especially when he's rising from his coffin, like his thinking about how they would do that with sort of this like draw behind the actor Max Schreck, and it was done like like very eerily, like it looked like he was naturally just rising of his coffin.
Yeah, that was super great. I really enjoyed that. It gave me like little goosebumps.
It was very eerie, and it was the same type of music, or I guess the same sequence that was going happening on the ship. Same
Yeah,
sequence
yeah.
as when they were chasing Knock.
It was really well done. I also liked how, like, unlike, I believe it was in the book. I still have to read it, unfortunately, but in like Coppola's version, whereas yeah, these star-crossed lovers, where as a Nosferatu, he's essentially this curse, and Ellen has to like kind of make the decision to sacrifice herself, and instead of just like cucking Thomas and be like, well, see you, buddy. I've found my long lost love, and I'm in this new spirit. It was like she saw that Nosferatu had become obsessed with her, and the only way to end this plague was to give herself up for it.
Very noble.
It was very noble, and also it was sort of sad too in
Yeah,
the ending of this. I don't know, the acting is very over the top, but there was something very moving just about that last part.
I agree. Yeah, especially when she's like cross stitching this sort of love letter and goodbye letter. She says like "I love you." That's all she says, and then yeah, her also the actor's portrayal of like being essentially haunted by Orlok and having these sort of like mental distresses and calling out to Hutter through the spirit, and then she calls out to him one last time before she has her life force taken away. It was really really well done.
Very romantic.
Um,
Do you guys have
I'm
anything else to add?
curious. I was curious, did you know more about it seems like the producer Grau seems like he had a lot to do with this.
Yeah,
Just as a producer, even though it was directed by someone else.
it was directed by Murnau, but typically in a producer role, you would just kind of be the money man and let the director and the writers do his thing. But he was kind of inspired seeing the start of German Expressionism and could see that he could express his occultic views through that. And so he really took the reins of this film. And Murnau still definitely had a lot to do with it, especially the cinematography. But yeah, a lot of set scenes were directly made by Grau, a lot of the dialogue as well. And of course, things like the contract that was accidentally signed by blood.
Right.
I
Like,
love it.
also,
He
who
just-
cuts
he just
bread
got
towards
super
yourself
into
like
it.
that? He's asking for trouble with that.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. I would have loved to have seen the other films they could have made.
Right? Yeah, it would have been really interesting. But it is kind of cool also that Grau went from this sort of, auteur of film to the master of the chair of a Freemason lodge, then starting his own cult of Saturn. Like he just clearly had a passion for the spooky.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I think the zoomies were awesome, and there were definitely some like really, that seemed like towards the end where they're like it's like just showing the main street and there's like people walking down it like carrying. I'm assuming they're dead. That was like
Yeah, the
super
coffins.
spooky.
Yeah, that was really well done. And it's something that they
Yeah,
actually
just
like
the way
that
that was
that was
all set up.
added, right?
That was added.
Yeah, that was an original from. That wasn't actually in the book. That was an original adaptation. It was added to Nosferatu.
Okay. I thought
It's
you meant like
definitely-
added to the movie later, and
Oh,
I was
no.
like, oh.
It was definitely one of the best shots of the movie.
To me, it almost had this like kind of like spooky like holy mountain vibe a little bit.
Yeah.
Like just with the way that like with the frick Alejandro sets up a lot of his shots, like kind of reminded me of that.
Well, and the thing too is like a lot of, especially film from like the 60s and 70s is, and most of it was influenced by German Expressionism because it was such a large movement within the film industry.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited to revisit the other versions of this now.
Have you seen
Revisiting
the Herzog one?
blueprint. You know, I haven't. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm psyched to watch it.
I'm really excited to see Herzog's version. I've heard a lot about it. And it has a lot of behind the scenes lore that's always interested me, and I just never got around to seeing it. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, me too. So when I was kind of getting into this, I'm like, yeah, I should look up like what has been, going on with this movie, like what led up to it. And there's it's crazy amount of lore, and then Herzog built on that, and also has a lot behind the scenes as well. Because the actor that plays Nosferatu, Klaus Kinski, he's also in another movie that Herzog directed, one of his first ones called Aguirre, The Wrath of God, where he's like a Spanish conquistador, and he apparently was a little too good at being a conquistador and was like very abusive to everyone around him. And so when he was then cast in another Herzog film for Nosferatu, like a lot of the cast said they were gonna like step away from the film if they brought Klaus Kinski back. So interesting that he did, but they clearly had this interesting relationship, which a lot of directors do seem to have, where they have this kind of interesting bond with an actor.
Yeah, and I feel like Eggers is probably Willem Dafoe.
Oh yeah, exactly.
That's his.
Oh, and I love the ship captain. He really gave off Dafoe vibes with his giant fucking bushy eyebrows. It was great.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. It kind of reminded me of The Lighthouse a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely did. You can definitely see how much influence this movie really had on Eggers. Because he actually wanted to make this one right after Lighthouse as well, but he wasn't able to.
Really?
Yep.
I guess we'll be discussing that.
Yeah, I'm excited. As like a kid and teenager, I was very like, vampires are stupid and for nerds. So this is just like a whole new world to me, and I love it.
That's awesome. So coming up, we have like a bunch of like really good vampire movies, and we also have, I think I kind of watch some stinkers like the Underworld series.
Yeah,
I love that. I love bad vampire movies too. I think Queen of the Damned, it's so bad, but I used to watch it all the time growing up.
Yes.
I think that one's on the list. I'll read the list we have here. We have the 3 Nosferatus. I'm actually going to remove James Wood vampires because fuck James Woods. even though it's a pretty good movie.
True.
Bram Stoker's by Coppola, Lost Boys, What We Do in the Dark, Vampire in Brooklyn, From Dusk Till Dawn, Let the Right One In, 30 Days a Night, The Underworld series, Renfield, Twilight, Kronos, Interview with a Vampire, Blade series, Abigail, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
So
Hell
many
yeah.
good ones. There are a couple I haven't seen actually.
I'm excited for Blade.
Me too.
Blade is so
I loved Blade
fun.
when I was a kid.
Yeah,
He's just
I've
so
always loved
badass.
vampires.
Yeah.
And then Interview with a Vampire actually will be fun because I've only seen it once before, and like whatever I was watching it on, the aspect ratio was all messed up, so it was
Okay.
like squished and wide. So like
Everyone was like chubby.
instead of like ooh, like Brad Pitt's so sexy, it was like this is short wide Brad Pitt.
It's like you were seeing like everyone who went to go see Oppenheimer but had to sit in the front row, and they were just seeing this giant distorted version of Cillian Murphy's face
Yeah.
looking really haunted.
Exactly. That's so funny.
It reminds me of a few years, or I don't know how long ago, when there was like the wide Putin meme.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It was like that.
Or like the wide Kylo Ren.
Yes. Oh my god. That is, yeah. Just replace Brad Pitt and yeah, Anthony Banderas. Yeah. With
Oh my god, I thought he's in that. Yeah.
yeah. Just replace those two with wide
Arguably,
Putin and wide Kylo Ren.
Yeah. I love that.
that's definitely Tom Cruise's best movie, I think.
I agree.
Because I can't stand him, but I love that movie.
Oh yeah.
There's
I
another
think
early
I
one that I
don't
really
know.
liked when he still had his
I
pointy old
really
tooth.
like
Yeah.
Eyes Wide Shut. I
Yeah,
think
that was
like
good.
that might be my favorite Tom Cruise movie.
Favorite Tom Cruise movie, least favorite Kubrick movie.
Yeah.
Oh, also another one I just forgot I add to the list. It's called Shadow of the Vampire, and it's actually like a movie about the behind the scenes of making Nosferatu, and it stars Willem Dafoe and John Malkovich.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Eddie Izzard's in it as well. Wow.
Oh my
What?
god, I need to watch this.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'll definitely. I think we
That
should watch that
sounds
after we
beautiful.
finish the Nosferatus.
Yeah. Let the Right One In is also
Yeah, that's a good one, too.
incredibly beautiful.
There's just so many
one's really good.
great vampire movies. Also a lot of Sherlock ones,
Oh.
but they're also great too.
True. I did watch one recently. Where's my Letterboxd? It has a very long, silly title, but it was actually quite cute. It's called Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. And it came out
amazing.
last year. And it's really sweet. It's almost kind of like a little heartwarming vampire movie.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good. It's kind of a change for the genre, because a lot of it's either like how Bram Stoker's is, where it's this sort of story about jealousy and lost love, or the sort of possession angle, like an obsession angle, like Nosferatu, or then you just have like, yeah, dude, we got some badass vampires that like have swords and they like shoot each other, and there's werewolves everywhere. Oh, we gotta watch
what I've always
Hell's
loved. Oh, we should. I do love Van Helsing.
That was one of my
What
favorite
I-
movies as a kid.
What
I think that's
what I've always
supposed to be on
loved.
the list.
It should be.
Yeah, I forgot to add it. What were you gonna
It
say,
really
man?
should be. I was gonna say what I've always loved about vampires, or like the type of vampire movie that I've always been drawn to is one that explores vampires more like an allegory to inner darkness. Those are the ones that I tend to love the most.
I really liked Only Lovers Left Alive, which is like
Oh yeah,
kind
that's
of
Jarmusch.
I think
I think
it's
so.
with Tilda Swinton as the main in that one, and
Yeah,
like
that was
they're
Jim Jarmusch.
and that when vampires are kind of like these ones in particular are like sort of like strung out like blood junkies who just sort of like schlep around, which I really enjoyed. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
they're just chilling.
Yeah, It's kind of wild. I realized that I think Universal's Dracula was the first speaking Dracula, right?
Yeah, with Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, kind of wild.
Probably watch that one too. I haven't seen that one since I was in film studies.
Bella.
Where the hell you been, Loca?
What if that is the reason why Bella's name is Bella? It's because of Bela
He's
Lugosi.
like, I've been in the grave.
That's amazing.
I want to see
No,
you
weirdly
sparkle.
Weirdly enough, what is it? Bella is actually like a common like men's name in like certain Eastern European countries.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, Bela Lugosi is
It's
from
like-
Romania.
Yeah, like Bela Bartok is like a famous composer who's from, I have no idea, probably a country that doesn't even exist anymore.
Oh, Hungary still exists. But yeah, they're
Oh,
typically
yeah.
spelled with one L, and then the
Yeah,
fem version is at two L's.
yeah,
It's interesting. It's kind of like Sasha, right? Like Sasha is a very more masculine name in like Slavic countries, but in more Western countries,
True.
it's a very fem name.
yeah. Yep. Very true. Words funny like that.
Words be funny sometimes.
Oh yeah, I was actually thinking that I can't remember. I think it's like for like my not my love, but like it's like a term of endearment, which is like shonen in German, which is like the Japanese word for like little boys.
That's so funny.
And I was like, huh, it's wild that like sometimes you find these same words and they
Yeah.
are totally different cultures, completely different meanings.
Yeah, and like completely different like evolution of their languages too. Because like it kind of makes sense when like there are other Latin or Romance languages and like kind of share some similar words where it's like they
Right.
still have different meanings, but they come from the same origin. Whereas like Japanese is not anywhere close to a Romanized language or culture.
Right. That's so interesting. Linguistics.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love it.
Wow, that was really fun. Thanks for joining us, man. That was
Yeah.
I had a blast.
Thank you for having me.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm excited for the next one.
Me too. I'm looking forward.
Yay!
Awesome.
That was fun. Thank you for thanks for joining us, man. It was very, very nice to have someone other than just us bouncing around
Yeah,
in here.
thanks for coming for the ramble.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. I love horror and I do love vampire movies, so
That'd be great.
Perfect.
Oops, I forgot to record plugs for May and myself. Please go check out MayDreaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/MayDreaming. They're also on Blue Sky under the same name. And come check me out as well at Dad Wrestler, twitch.tv. Thank you so much. We'll see you next episode.